Welcome everybody to the July City of Franklin Municipal Planning Commission meeting. We appreciate everybody being here. We will start our meeting by getting a motion for the minutes from our June meeting. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if there are items that are not on tonight's agenda that you want to speak to the commission on, this is your opportunity, if you'll come forward. All right, I see none, then we'll move on to announcements from our staff.
The planning department does have a little news to share, but I'm going to turn it over to Larry Mizell, our land planner, to make the announcement.
Okay.
Many of you know I'm leaving. This is my last planning commission. And I've enjoyed working with you. I've enjoyed everything these 10 years I've had here. Thank you for all you've done to help me do what we've done. I want to challenge you to keep up the good work. I will be, at the end of August, become the planning director at Mount Juliet. So it's an opportunity that came my way.
Larry has served this department very diligently for right at 10 years, and we are very sad to see him leave, but very excited for the opportunity that awaits him. So we are very happy for him.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Larry. Great job for all the years you've worked here. Since you just turned 30, I'm sure you have a long career ahead of you.
I will do that.
Just getting started. All right. Okay, is there anyone, audience, commission, or not commission, any applicants out there that want to consider an item that's not on tonight's agenda to be considered by the commission? Okay, I see none. Then we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have two consent agendas. One is our initial consent that everybody theoretically can vote on. These are considered non-controversial items that we'll vote on in one big block. Those consent are items 2, 3, 4, 5, 16, 17, 19, and 20. Anyone on the commission, staff, or audience that wants to pull an item for discussion? All right, then I'll entertain a motion for that agenda.
Move for approval.
Okay, I'm going to say, Scott, you motioned, and Elma, you seconded. All right, any discussion on that agenda? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Then we'll move on to our secondary consent, which is items 14 and 15 that Lisa will be recusing herself on. So anyone want to pull either items 14 or 15 from the agenda? All right, I see none. Then is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Scott and Marcia. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Let's move on, excuse me, to item number 6, consideration resolution 2017-3, a resolution adopting a plan of service for the annexation of portions of Bushnell and Bates property by the city of Franklin. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This property is contiguous to the city limits along the eastern property line. A separate annexation request, zoning request, and the development plan accompany this request for a plan of services. Staff recommends the item favorably to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
All right, thank you. Other than the applicant, is anybody in the audience who wants to speak to this item? I do. All right. Remember, we're just talking about plan of services for this item. There'll be a annexation discussion on the next item if you want to wait or. Okay, all right. Anybody else wants to speak? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, item number 7, consideration resolution 2017-50, also ordinance 2017-34, entitled an ordinance to a resolution and ordinance to annex portions of Bushnell and Bates properties consisting of 9.75 acres located south of Goose Creek and east of Lewisburg Pike and adjoining the city limits within the southern part of City of Franklin's urban growth boundary. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The site The site proposed to be annexed is adjacent to the City of Franklin southern boundary. A separate zoning request, development plan, and plan of service accompany this annexation request. Staff recommends the item favorably to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
All right, now if there's anybody that wants to speak on this item that's not part of the application, please come forward. When you come forward, if you'll come to the podium over here, if you'll state your name, where you live, and we've got 2 minutes for you to speak before the big red buzzer goes off. And then there's I think a hole in the floor that drops out too, just so you know.
Thank you. My name is Tim Egbert. I live at 1521 Lewisburg Pike. And the basis of my comments is that there seems to be some confusion about this property. Mainly is that if you look at the details of what's been proposed, my property address is the property address that is to be annexed in this plan. If you look under the shaded area, my property is actually a parcel that was sold to me last fall, just south of the shaded area. I've been in contact with the State Department of Environment and Conservation, and they were fully unaware that I owned part of this property, and basically said to me that they would not have given the approval or proceeded with the different permits for wetland evaluation, and then also permits to alter the wetlands that are on our property. There is a wetland that is partially on my property and partly in the property that is to be annexed. They were not aware of that, and I was never asked, and nor did I give permission for anyone to enter my property to make those evaluations. So I would ask that the commission does not approve this project.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, is there someone here representing the applicant?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is John Haas. I'm a principal with Edge Planning, Landscape Architecture, and Urban Design. In regards to that comment, what I can tell you is as part of this submittal process and part of the, throughout the workshop and so on, there has been survey done on the property. All of that has been done in a legal manner. Some of the farm pond does touch Mr. Egbert's property. But in regards to that, we do have concurrence letters from TDEC that we made them aware. We've done everything legally we're required to do to move this plan forward through a rezoning process. There will be additional correspondence at site plan, but at this time, we've done everything we've been required to do in regards to TDEC.
Okay, thank you. All right, do I have a motion?
I'm trying to get attorney's opinion, counsel, of what we should do here if there's a land dispute.
I can't, I don't know.
This is new to us.
Yeah, as someone who has dealt with an address problem for 18 years, I'm telling you now, I'm not gonna vote for this until we know something more about this. I have been put through hell about an address change. My property address, my grandparents built a house 40-some odd years ago with a property address that was changed 18 years ago when one of our neighbors died. And for some reason, AT&T, Bell South, South Central Bell, every time we have an order problem, that address pops back up, and we have caught holy hell over that. And so I'm telling you, this needs to be, I need some clarification before I'm gonna feel comfortable with that.
The property that's being annexed is not currently addressed. It is and was a vacant farm field. It has never had a structure and it's never been addressed.
And nor do we use the address in any of the ordinances or resolutions. We define it by the parcel number, and we have legal descriptions for that, but we don't use a physical address because there is none.
Well, as long as there's any question in my mind, there's nobody dying over this. And as long as nobody's gonna die if we don't do this tonight, this is my opinion, and I can only speak for Marcia Allen. As long as there is any cloud, or as long as there's any whatever in my mind, I'm not gonna support this until we have a definitive answer or something. That's how I feel.
If I may, as Amy just stated, we do have a legal description that goes along with the annexation and the plan of services that matches the shaded boundary. which is not a part of the adjoining neighbor's property. Again, it doesn't have an address yet. It'll be assigned an address once a site plan, is my understanding, goes through. I don't know that next month that would change.
Okay.
The legal description and the meets and bounds of the parcel are part of this annexation packet.
All right, well, I still need a motion before we discuss more further, and no could I more s- comments, sir, no. Okay, you move for approval? Okay, moved and seconded for approval. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It says the property is located, in the background, it says the property is located between 1495 and 1521 Lewisburg Pike. Where is the address that we're under discussion? I mean,
I own 1521.
ah, gotcha.
Because their address is on here. That's what I was gonna say. Okay.
Oh, it does say
Right,
between
right.
there.
The resolution
Yeah, that's-
refers to the property at these
Oh, does it?
1495
That's
and
what I'm saying, their
1521.
addresses.
And we're just asking for annexation,
If you could,
Okay, please come forward.
Please allow 2 comments. Can I please have another comment?
No, that's not the way we work. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman and Planning
Sure.
Commissioners. As our team mentioned, in the annexing property, we use the legal description. The addressing of properties is very intentional at the platting time. The city of Franklin has an addressing manual, and a person assigned to issue address and to rectify addresses with our emergency services and the U.S. Postal Service at the time a plat is established. And it's not uncommon for addresses to change at some point in time, particularly in more rural areas of the outer limits of our current city, in which we're annexing property and adding new structures. So I can assure you that any addressing will be rectified, and we'll be happy to work with this gentleman in the county if he believes there is confusion, and maybe even try to anticipate, based on this plan, if it moves forward, what the addresses may look like.
Okay. Any other discussion?
So-
Jimmy?
So, the first part of that, number 6, we approved.
Correct.
For plan of services, and then number 7 is just bringing it into the city as annexation.
Right.
That's right.
So, there'll be, complete scrutiny over the site plan when it's presented, whether the number of lots or the width of the road or the environmental impact of it. So, as far as the annexation, I see that as a positive.
Okay.
Well,
And I will
Ms. Peterson?
Well, I'm looking back at what we're discussing right now, and it does say properties located at 1495 and 1521. Shouldn't it say what this says on the others, located between those two? Could we,
just
I
needs
mean, would
to
it be
corrected.
acceptable to have something, maybe just an amendment here to say located
Right.
between?
Okay, you want to make an amendment to the
Well,
main
I-
motion?
But check, let's just check.
Typo or something.
It's on the annexation. I don't know about the others because
Right.
I didn't look specifically for that. But I'm looking at the resolution.
This is at,
Mr. Chairman, can we ask the applicant or the neighbor to the south to clarify, though, an item or two that he mentioned?
What are you asking to clarify?
Well, he was wanting to ask a question about clarification on
If you'd like to hear that in order to understand your vote, then
Make a
I
decision,
I
please.
think that's fine. If you want to come forward,
Thank you. What the applicant described was having permission to enter my property from the Department of Environmental and Conservation. However, that was given with the premise that 1521 was 2 parcels owned by the same owner. They gave me a description of this. The office member's name is Brandon Yates with the Division of Water Resources. They were under the impression as recent as this week that there was 2 parcels owned by the same owner. Only until I notified them that I was the second owner did they realize that they were giving permission for 2 separate property owners to have that property evaluated. So they didn't have property or permission to get on my property at any time to make those initial evaluations of the environmental conditions.
All right, any other discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, you're still waiting on,
Yeah, you need, if we're gonna approve this tonight, you would need to make an amendment to change
the
the
wording?
first whereas clause from at to between.
Okay, so
Because it says that.
this is on resolution 2017-13. On the second whereas, it would say, properties located between.
It's
Go to the next one over.
2017-50,
From the annexation
we're on
stuff.
number 7.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wow. We can fix that on
It's on the other one too.
Mhm.
That's right.
Excuse me.
It is. Okay. Well.
Okay. 2017-50 resolution and 2017-34 for the ordinance.
Yes.
Okay, it would be the first whereas then.
Yes.
To say properties located between 1495 Lewisburg Pike and 1521 Lewisburg Pike.
Not at.
okay, is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second that.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion on the amendment to the main motion?
So does that mean that leaves his property out? Or is
Well,
he
it-
saying that his property is
Right.
part of what he thinks is, his
It's
property is
not.
part of the shaded property?
It's not,
Is it
it's
doing
not,
that?
it's not the shaded,
Because he's
you're not part of the shaded
The
property.
actual ordinance refers to the legal description of the property to
does-
be annexed, which
right.
is correct. There is a whereas that has the address referred to, and we'll get that corrected with that amendment.
Because he's at 21.
Okay, so we're on the amendment to the main motion. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Back to the main motion. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, so we move to item number 8, consideration ordinance 2017-35, an ordinance to zone 9.75 acres to specific development residential SDR 2.05 Goose Creek Character Area Overlay and conventional standards for the property located south of Goose Creek Bypass and east of Lewisburg Pike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Staff.
This property is located between 1495 and 1521. The resolution in front of you also has the same typo on the first whereas clause. Envision Franklin recommends a conservation subdivision design concept for this area. The accompanying development plan meets the intent of the conservation subdivision as outlined in the development plan staff report. Staff recommends the item favorably to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
All right, thank you. Anyone in the audience who wants to speak to this item, which is the zoning of this property? Go on forward. State your name and where you live again, please, for the record.
My name is Tim Egbert. I live at 1521 Lewisburg Pike. I would like to comment on this part. Again, the foundation of rezoning and evaluating this property was evaluating the wetlands that are shared between my property and the property trying to be annexed and rezoned. They never had permission to enter my property. The Department of Environment and Conservation in the state of Tennessee does not grant partial wetland evaluation. It is looked at as a whole, and they never received permission from me to evaluate this property. So the plan, the rezoning, I request that it's denied.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, is there someone representing the applicant on this one?
Good evening, John Haas with Edge Planning, Landscape Architecture and Urban Design. I just want to reiterate, this plan, we began working with this plan about 18 months ago. I think it was even prior to Envision Franklin being adopted, but agreed, or it was in its later stages, but agreed that we would develop a plan that was completely in tune and in line with the Envision Franklin Conservation Subdivision. So we've worked very hard to get there with staff, and really come up with some alternative solutions here. And we think it's a great plan, and we respectfully request your approval.
All right. Again, we are talking about the zoning of this property. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, let me get that clarified. Scott, Alma, you moved,
That's Mike.
and Mike seconded. Okay. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to say one thing before we continue. All of these things are recommendations to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Right.
Nothing will be done until it is heard by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. So this is not a done deal after tonight.
That's correct. Thank you.
I have a couple of things on this. Some of them I'd already commented about to the staff. On some of these, they have a density of 2.9 dwelling units per acre, and that is not correct. And I notice now that I'm looking at the two printout items that we got, they also have the address being those two properties instead of the property between those two addresses. So all of that needs to be corrected before it moves on. And actually, it would have been helpful, now that I see what's going on, to show on the colored map here the specific area. I can actually see where the property line goes through the pond, or whatever that is out there. I didn't realize that, I didn't really pay that much attention to it when I was looking at it before. So that needs to be outlined well, and then that would show then that it is not covering the entire pond.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
We'll make sure that those things get addressed. If you'd like to make a formal condition of approval on the development plan, when that item comes up, you can. We will also work with the applicant to make sure that those things are corrected on the official copies of the plans. I did just want to comment, I was speaking with the engineering department. In terms of the wetlands, we have only received a letter of concurrence from TDEC at this point. We are not aware of any of the situation that was brought up tonight, so this is all news to our staff.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I mean, whether this is a wetland or not, it really is irrelevant to what we're discussing and voting on.
For this moment, yes.
Well, on the development plan,
rezoning.
not necessarily, but on this one.
Right.
This
Yeah.
You're
one
right.
tonight.
I would again make the motion to amend on this to say on the whereas that it would be properties located between the two addresses.
Okay, that's a proper amendment. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded by Michael. Any discussion, Ms. Peterson?
I was just also going to say it needs to be corrected about the density also, because that
Okay.
is not the corrected density.
You want to amend your motion then to include that?
Okay. May I add that? I don't know who seconded.
Second.
Thank
Yeah.
you. May I-
Okay, then that's,
Just to, and they have it correct on something, but they've just got it incorrect on some
okay,
others.
so it's a proper adjusted motion amendment, if that's a Robert's rules explanation, but anyways, so any other discussion on the amendment to the main motion that's been revised? All right, all in favor of that amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Back to the main motion. Any other discussion about the rezone or the zoning of this property? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 9, Resolution 2017-51, a resolution approving a development plan for Bushnell Farm PUD subdivision for the property located south of Goose Creek Bypass and east of Lewisburg Pike. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Envision Franklin recommends a conservation subdivision design concept for the entire block of Lewisburg Pike, south of the existing entrance to Stream Valley subdivision. This development is, I skipped one. The subdivision maintains the 50% open space requirement of the conservation subdivision design concept by maintaining a setback on Lewisburg Pike consistent with a historical development pattern by clustering open space around the existing farm pond wetlands and by providing additional tree protection space along the boundary between this proposed subdivision and the existing Stream Valley subdivision. This development is meeting the intent of the special area consideration by maintaining contiguous open space along Lewisburg Pike, surrounding the existing farm pond, and further preserving an existing tree row on the edge of the property abutting Stream Valley subdivision, which was a concern brought up at the neighborhood workshop. Staff recommends the item favorably to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Okay. All right, is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak to this item?
Tim Egbert, I live at 1521 Lewisburg Pike. Just want to make some comments again on the plan that's put in front of us. Again, the foundation of the applicant to even be able to put a plan in front of you was to get in the property and evaluate it, which they did unlawfully. They entered my property without permission and evaluated it with surveyors without my permission. That is the foundation of how they can even put anything up on the screen for you guys. So it is very pertinent to what we're discussing tonight. Obviously, the plan itself impacts me greatly because I right now have a very country setting where I can live and enjoy my life. And what the plan suggests is to allow upwards of 550 or 560 homes to drive directly past my house. All doing this without permission to evaluate the property or create this plan with any impact, consideration of me and the impact it would have. The wetland itself is obviously going to be greatly impacted. You can't cut a pond in half and not expect something to happen. Again, a big draw to is why I wanted that property and why we're putting so much effort into making it our home. Again, I would ask the commission not to approve this plan.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, is there someone representing the applicant?
John Haas with Edge Planning, Landscape Architecture, and Urban Design. There are 12 conditions as part of the development plan that we are in complete agreement with, including condition number 12, if you want to refer to those, which specifically addresses additional environmental assessment as you move towards site plan, which we completely agree with. I do want to say one thing, just so everyone's clear. We're not cutting the pond in half. It's an imaginary line across the pond. We will not alter anything beyond this property line. And as it says in condition 12, we will agree to further mitigation per any agency that's involved. That includes the City of Franklin's engineering, stormwater staff, and TDEC.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval of staff conditions.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I cannot support this as it's drawn up with the big house concept fronting Lewisburg.
Okay,
It's a rural area, not suitable for attached dwellings,
all right,
in my opinion.
thank you. Any other comments? Ms. Peterson?
If you look, I'm looking at the development plan submittal, and I'm reading on here, it says parcel ID 1521 Lewisburg Pike, and it has Bushnell owners on it.
Let's see this.
All the way through here.
What does this mean?
Alderman Peterson, I think the current conditions that you're referring to in the development plan were current at the time that it was initially submitted with the survey. The property transaction is likely to have taken place after this exhibit was prepared by the applicant.
Okay.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, then voting on the development plan, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, if you're saying no, please raise your hand.
I'm gonna say no on this.
No?
I don't like the
All right, chair votes no, so motion fails. Okay. Then we move on to item number 10. Ordinance 2017-37, an ordinance to rezone 6.38 acres from specific development residential to specific development residential SDR 10.0, the property located south of Boyd Mill Avenue and west of Shawnee Drive. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is requesting a rezoning of the property to allow for the construction of 48 attached senior living homes. Envision Franklin supports a rezoning request as listed in the special consideration section for mixed residential. Franklin Housing Authority properties may include a limited number of multifamily residential in accordance with their master plans. There is an accompanying development plan on tonight's agenda. Staff recommends favorably to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
All right, is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak to this item? All right, I see none, then is there someone representing the applicant? If you please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Darrell James. I'm a consulting engineering firm called James Plus Associates. We've developed this plan, and I have Susan Miner and Doug Johns here from the Franklin Housing Authority if anyone has questions about the administration or those kinds of things. But we're requesting approval of the rezoning.
All right, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Michael seconded. Scott moved. Had the motion. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 11, Resolution 2017-53, a resolution approving a development plan for Chickasaw PUD subdivision located south of Boyd Mill and west of Shawnee. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is proposing 48 senior living attached units. The proposed structure will connect the other Franklin Housing Authority-owned property to the south and Jim Warren Park to the north. As I mentioned, the property is located within the mixed residential design concept within Envision Franklin and is listed as a special consideration that states Franklin Housing Authority properties may include a limited number of multifamily residential in accordance with their master plans. And staff finds that the proposed plan meets the principles of Envision Franklin, and staff recommends favorably to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone other than the applicant that wants to speak to this item? Again, is there someone representing this applicant?
Darrell James with James Plus Associates, and we're asking for approval of the PUD development plan.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 12, consideration ordinance 2017-36, an ordinance to zone 1.46 acres into the historic preservation overlay for the property located south of Old Paytonsville Road and east of Hughes Lane. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This lot contains the physical remains of the homestead known as Rural Plains, including the 1830s era federal-style farmhouse and several outbuildings. In recognition of the property's historic significance, the Rural Plains portion of the Berry Farm subdivision concept plan was approved in 2004 with a condition stating that in conjunction with the preparation of the final plat that includes the Rural Plains home site with surrounding outbuildings, the lot on which those structures are located shall be rezoned within the Historic Preservation District. The final plat was recently filed, which now allows for the consideration of HPO district rezoning. The Historic Zoning Commission approved a favorable recommendation to the Planning Commission and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for the rezoning of this property into the HPO district at its June 12, 2017 meeting. Staff recommends this item favorably to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in the audience other than the applicant to speak to this item?
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself on this one.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing none, is there someone representing the applicant?
I'm Ryan McMaster with Kimley Horn. Representing the project, would request approval or favorable recommendation to both.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Who was that at that time? Jimmy?
Michael.
I'll let him have it.
Scott has this one, okay. Trying to clarify for the records.
Yeah.
Okay, proper motion, is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, item number 13, Resolution 2017-54, a resolution approving a PUD development plan for Williamson County Medical Center located north of Murfreesboro Road and west of Carruthers Parkway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Envision Franklin recommends a regional commerce design concept in this area. It also has a special area consideration for the area along Carruthers Parkway between Murfreesboro Road and Liberty Pike. The proposed development meets the intent of the special area consideration by providing for an expansion of the hospital's outpatient medical facilities and office in this location. Staff recommends the item favorably to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
All right, thank you. Is there someone, sorry, let me start over. Anybody other than the applicant want to speak to this item? All right, is there someone representing the applicant?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Andrew Johnson with Smith Seckman Reed in Nashville, civil engineer. And the hospital would like to thank you for the attention to this project and looks forward to moving forward to approval.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank
All right, then we move on to item number 18, Splendor Ridge Subdivision Preliminary Plat, 19 single-family lots on 27.5 acres located between Lancaster Drive and the Harpeth River and west of Franklin Road. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item was deferred at last month's Planning Commission. The proposed trail segment between the Harpeth River and the existing subdivision along Lancaster Drive has been removed from the plan set. Staff recommends approval of this preliminary plat.
All right, is there someone is there anybody other than the applicant that wants to speak tonight? All right, great. If you, those that want to speak, if you'll line up and help us be more efficient, just tell us your name, where you live, and also try to hold your comments to 2 minutes. And we'll attempt not to buzz you.
I'm Martin Dunn, and I have lived at 147 Lancaster Drive for the past 43 years. My property adjoins the development. The entire land there is zoned R1 and should average 1 acre per lot. The total acreage in that is 27.5 acres. And what they've done is whacked off the back pasture, which is 12.6 acres. And they are building 19 lots on those 12.6 acres. Now, the 14.9 acres that the big house sits on is not part of the development. None of it is for sale. None of it will be developed for housing. It is not labeled as a lot on the plot. The city will not allow the development residents to exit directly onto Franklin Road, but Dr. Bethurham will be able to continue to do that. Now, I got one thing here I'd like for y'all to have a look at.
Yeah, you can pass it down.
To explain a bit better. Take one and pass it down, I appreciate it. In this DRT dated April 25th of 17, the developer's representative, Greg Gamble, stated in item 5, which I'm passing out to you, it'll be on the second page. Up near the top it says, the 14.5 acre homestead is to remain a separate and private lot. And then further down, about halfway down the paragraph, it says a fence along the property line reinforced with landscape material, will provide a farm field boundary and provide a clear division for this homestead lot from the new lots.
Sir, if you could wrap up your comments, please.
So it's pretty clear that they do not intend for this 14 acres in the front to be part of the development. And therefore, the 13 acres in the back half would only justify 13 lots. Now, there's a solution to it. Mr. Bethurem could combine 12 of those lots into 6. He'd have the same amount of land to sell, but it would be with 13 lots as the zoning requires. And I understand that there have been a couple of people that have inquired about buying 2 lots anyway, so it shouldn't be difficult for him to sell those double lots. So I recommend that y'all deny the presented plats because of the fact it's got too many lots on that small acreage.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Albert Cox. I live at 182 Lancaster Drive. And I look around the room, I see a few familiar faces, but I see a lot of new faces. I've been working with the city for the last 20 years on the Stormwater Ordinance Committee, producing the ordinance and working to help improve the conditions of the Harpeth River. I've looked at this site plat that they've got, and what concerns me is two items. First of all, there's about 10 houses on the back portion of this development that, first of all, does not even come close to meeting the requirements for the Zone 1 buffering, which is a stream bank restoration or a area that you can protect the stream bank from. It looks like those homes are to be built as a river overlook with nothing to go. Second of all, they have no Zone 2 buffer, and they're using the backyard as a Zone 3. So there's 10 houses there that absolutely deny everything that the Stormwater Ordinance has tried to put in place in order to protect and improve the water quality. The second item is that I've heard, and I don't know if it's true or not, that a portion of the drainage is supposed to go across Lancaster Drive into Mr. Smith's pasture land, which he owns 10 acres between Lancaster and Harlesdale Farm. Now that is an area that is prone to flooding anyway. And what concerns me is that when it does flood, the water gets deep enough that I cannot get out of the subdivision if I'm in there, or I can't get in until the water recedes. So those are 2 items that I don't feel has been addressed properly and needs to be looked at even deeper. And also, owning into the Harpeth River, and as a riparian landowner, I strongly advise that this be denied until we can get our river protected better, our buffers put in place, and to make sure that we don't get flooded out across the way. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Bob Plummer. I live at 126 Lancaster Drive. I've lived there 30 years, raised my kids there for the most part. They're out of the house. They're not returning home. That's really nice. But my daughter in Huntsville says, Dad, don't you sell that house, because I want it, because I'm going to come visit my brother and sister, and I want a place to stay, and that's where it'll be. Last meeting, the gentleman got up here and said they were going to run everything out Parsons Place and down Lancaster Road to the stoplight, and it would have very little impact. There are 47 house plots on Lancaster Drive. They're going to add 19. They're going to increase the number of houses basically by 42%. And he has the nerve to say it's going to have very little impact on that stoplight. No, you put 42% more houses there, any kind of logic you want to use. Everybody has 1 car, everybody has 2 cars, however you want to do it, there's a big impact at that light. If you go sit at that light, you could watch people rush into Franklin as the light is about to turn. It's like the Grand Prix. They're afraid they're going to have to get stuck at that light for a minute while somebody pulls out of Lancaster Drive. It's a mess. Can't tell you how many times I've pulled up, the light has turned green, and you weave your way around the traffic because they blocked the whole intersection. One of the plans says, or part of the plan says, there will be no curb cuts. The curb cut has been there for 30 years. Dr. Bethurm's people have used it. He boarded horses there. Horse trailers have used it. His maintenance people have used it. My parents used it to go back and take the McPeaks cheese, oatmeal, and whatever else they got for assistance. That cut has been there for 30 years. Now, part of it says, well, we don't want to put a light that close to the other light. I'm sorry, we didn't ask for that problem. There's bound to be a way with sensors and timers that they can fix that problem and put that in there. Dr. Bethurm can raise the level of that service road, or we'll call it his service drive, to above the flood level, and that would take care of it. It would be expensive. I'm not making any money out of this. There are 47 people, home sites, that you need to represent other than just Dr. Bethurm. I have no problem with Dr. Bethurm. I've returned his dog to him. I've told him his dog has gotten loose, helped him do that. That's not a problem. The problem is I don't think you can ignore 47 households for the sake of one when there's another option on the table. And I would say the plat does say it's going to drain into the pasture across Lancaster Drive. That is it. That's in their proposal.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, good evening. My name's Adam Balish. I live at 222 Adams Court. I'm not a neighbor to this area, but am here tonight speaking as the Vice President of Friends of Franklin Parks. I wanted to commend staff on working with applicants as well as the community on creating unique infill opportunities as well as greenfield development. Obviously, this is not. But that capture the essence of what the entire community, not just 47 lots or the neighboring subdivision is asking for, but the entire community captures within the vision of Envision Franklin. There are a very strenuous set of requirements that are on any applicant, any developer, and staff does a great job at working with those folks to make sure those plans meet those requirements. So on this particular evening, Friends of Franklin Parks, as well as a lot of constituents that we represent, would ask you to follow what has been stated publicly, often through documents like Envision Franklin that support infill development of this nature. Obviously, there have been some revisions to this plan since the previous month that we continue to support and believe it would be a great addition to our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Can I get drawing PP 1.1 brought up? By the way, my name's Ed Ossie, and I live at 118 Lancaster Drive in Hartford, Mass. Takes a while. So while this drawing is coming up, what I wanted to just point out, and it's really kind of a qualitative. Oh, that's not it. There you go. So here's my problem. All the properties to the north of Lancaster are basically a half acre to maybe a little bit between a half acre to 1 acre. The properties that are 7,500 square feet all down here are almost just 0.17 acres. So the density of this neighborhood, in contrast to a historical neighborhood which was built, as best I can tell, in the early 70s in phase one and continued after that, is just a clash. And if the city of Franklin is very concerned about historical preservation, okay, I can't see how you can put in a subdivision here which has absolutely no relationship, no historical connection to the previous construction that was built. Okay, that's one point. The second point is that I discovered that the construction entrance, okay, will be the road that goes down to the south, so that all of that heavy equipment, which I imagine will be trucks, bulldozers, etc., for the whole year is coming in and out of that southern entrance. And in my opinion, if they can do that for the construction, they can do that for the access into the neighborhood, okay? And just get away from trying to go down Lancaster Drive. And the third thing is related to just basically that, you know, as the gentleman said, there's 47 acres, there are 47 people that live in Lancaster. There's really 13 acres that are being developed, not 27, okay? That is a total misrepresentation of what this plan is all about. So that needs to be corrected and evaluated in that context. And so those are my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you for hearing me tonight. My name's Dave Spalding, 106 Parsons Place. My property, where I've resided for over 22 years, is the proposed entrance to the new subdivision. With that said, our neighborhood has a lot of joggers, people walking their dogs, elderly taking their walks in the morning and afternoons. A lot of people using that street on Lancaster coming down. That street is 20 feet wide, just 20 feet wide. When you have two cars passing each other on that street, you've got to get over if you're walking. As I'm coming down the street in a single car, I've got to make sure I get over so I don't hit anybody. So my main concern, commissioners, is safety in our neighborhood. We got a lot of foot traffic there. I went over to Chestnut Bend, which is right across from us over the river. They have their streets at 30 feet, plus they have sidewalks. You got Spencer Hall, again, 30 feet, sidewalks. Franklin Green, a little smaller, 26 feet, sidewalks. Tidewater Crossings, 26 feet, sidewalks. So what I'm asking is, one, if it's got to come through Parsons, down Lancaster, either we widen the streets, put some sidewalks, or we go out the other exit onto Franklin Road. That's what I propose. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm Mary Pierce, and I live at 103 Woodview Court, and I'm on the Historic Zoning Commission. And I just want to make you aware that the farmstead is really a rare piece of Franklin's history. And the reason that they looked at that site for the house, the Historic Zoning Commission, is that the barn and the house are National Register properties. A long time ago, we got asked, please don't just, advocate for everything old. And at that time, there were all the properties that were eligible for the National Register at that time, and since then there's been some modifications of things that were lost to the National Register and others that were added. But this is a National Register property. It wasn't just give the Bethurums a big yard. It was looking at what the historic resource was, and Franklin's historic character has given us a presence all over America, and so I ask you to please keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right, is there someone representing the applicant?
Hello, my name is Greg Gamble, and I represent the applicant.
Mr. and Ms. Bethurum in this request for the Splendor Ridge preliminary plat. During this process, we have met repeatedly with staff, the Historic Zoning Commission, and other interested parties to ensure that this subdivision complies with the subdivision regulations, the zoning ordinance, the Historic Zoning Commission, and Envision Franklin. In addition to creating a conservation subdivision that preserves a significant portion of this property, this creates the opportunity to provide needed easements to the city of Franklin for public access, including additional sewer easement, water line easement, a greenway trail easement along the frontage of the river. We accept all staff comments and conditions of approval and request your approval tonight, subject to those conditions. There are a couple of items that were discussed by the neighbors I'd like to address, if you don't mind. In Envision Franklin, it states for Franklin Road and Riverview Historic Estate that the rural view shed along Franklin Road should be preserved, with infill to be located behind the historic home and its accessory structures. Infill could either be all single-family residential or a mixture of dwelling types. Some townhomes may be appropriate. Building heights should transition from 1 to 2 stories along Lancaster Drive to 3 stories along Harpeth River, as long as the perceived height from Franklin Road is less than the historic home. Now, we have presented this plan to the Historic Zoning Commission, and they will be reviewing each house proposed on each lot. There has been discussion that they will be looking very critically at the 2 larger lots that are adjacent to the northern property boundary, that they do expect that transition of 1 to 2 stories in that particular location. On the south side, along the riverside, there's some concern about these being 3 stories, that 2 stories may be more appropriate height, but it needs to be looked at and determined on a house-by-house basis. And I can't tell you today if someone's going to propose a 3-story house, but that is contemplated as a part of Envision Franklin and a part of the zoning ordinance. Again, that will be scrutinized by the Historic Zoning Commission. The original homestead of Riverview is included in this preliminary plat and is a part of the 27.5 acres of the entirety. This plan does follow the subdivision regulations and zoning ordinance for conservation subdivision and the lot size requirements of the zoning ordinance. We are not asking for any special exceptions or modification of standards with this request. The construction access will come off of the gravel drive that currently accesses Franklin Road. We've been told by engineering staff that there will not be a public street access between Lancaster Drive and the traffic signal and the bridge. That there's will not be supported by the City of Franklin staff. Several of the neighbors asked me to ask Paul Holson, our city engineer, about the possibility of adding a left turn lane onto Lancaster when traveling northbound on Franklin Road. That left turn lane will be considered with the Franklin Road improvements that have already been approved by BOMA that are to be under construction in the next 2 years. So that full analysis of the left turn lane and coordination with the state will be determined and done at that time with the road. It currently operates, that left turn lane currently operates at a level service A. With the addition of the 19 homes, it remains at a level of service A. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
Move for approval with conditions.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Michael and Scott. Any discussion?
All 19 lots are single-family, correct?
Yes, all 19 lots are single-family detached homes.
I have a
The
question.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You
The
can go
gentleman spoke earlier, and he had a lot of issues that he talked about
pertaining to the stormwater.
Yeah, that was
Can you
my,
address some of those, because it.
Sure can.
you said-
Would you
I
mind
think
pulling
you
the
previously
PDF back
worked
up?
with
that was
stormwater.
exactly my question.
1.1 short. The major issue there is that there is currently a sewer line that crosses along the bank of the river. The sewer line currently takes up a 30-foot easement area. Cities, water and sewer have asked for that to be an 80-foot easement. The sewer in that location is about 40 feet deep, 44 in some locations. The manholes are along that portion of the bank of the river. The buffer has been compromised as a result of the sewer line, the tree clearing, and what is being done by the city now to maintain that sewer line and that route. We have provided mitigation and additional buffering alongside the bridge and alongside you can go to the next page, I think, may show the next one. Yes, here. We have provided an area, I don't know if everybody can see this, alongside the river in this location as you get closer to the bridge, that is an alternative location for buffering. So the first Zone 1 buffer must be 60 feet. There's no exceptions. The second zone buffer, which is applied when you have slopes greater than 14% in Zone 1, can be averaged. Because of the way the sewer line goes through there, city staff has said that we are proposing a better location for streamside buffer, or in this case, Harpeth River buffer, in the location we've proposed it. As far as stormwater going toward Lancaster, we are regrading the kind of the high point ridge of the site so that stormwater will go toward the back of lots, but also go across toward our stormwater treatment facilities and areas. There's a 24-inch stormwater pipe that crosses underneath Lancaster. There's a chance that that's too small. That's going to be evaluated before we move to our site plan construction documents. If it needs to be a 36-inch pipe, it would be the responsibility to replace that pipe with a larger pipe. We understand that requirement.
What direction is that line flowing?
It flows toward Harlansdale, Harlansdale Park.
Towards Harlansdale, okay.
For a discharge to a drainage way that?
There are currently stormwater easements through there. There's one that runs along the northern boundary of the property. If you go to the page just before this one. Let's see, yes, here. One more up. Okay, it's shown, the pipe is shown on this where it's labeled Lancaster Drive. You can see it in the upper left corner, and it shows and labels where the surveyor identifies the 24-inch storm pipe. You can see there on this preliminary plat the associated easements for stormwater drainage as the water traverses to the north.
And that's carrying the release from the ponds?
It
the
is.
Basins and
Yes, it is. But the infiltration requirements of the city of Franklin for those ponds and the biofiltration areas will reduce the quantity of stormwater as well as the rate of stormwater.
So it should reduce all of that?
Correct.
Would it help some of the existing problems that they have?
Yes,
that-
ma'am.
What they have in.
Currently, the water sheet flows right now off of the horse fields.
So it's
And
gonna
right
be.
It will now
upscale.
be controlled.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
so I had some concerns about the buffers because they're a little hard
Yeah,
to interpret on the
it is.
plans.
It's
And
very
so
hard.
the area where the lots back up to they're up against a pretty steep slope. But that's,
They are.
That's a zone that's greater than a 14% slope, and so they're able to average buffers across that zone.
Yes, that's correct.
But engineering staff is comfortable that we're doing
Okay
what we
with
need to
that?
do to respect the buffers that were required and.
The Zone 1 buffer is still in place and intact. The Zone 2 buffer allows for the averaging, and that's what is impacting
Okay.
this project.
And the zone one buffer typically is a non-disturbed buffer.
That's correct.
But we also are, it's complicated by the fact that there's a significant sewer easement through that same reach.
That's correct.
Well, I also had concerns, I guess, about the access from Parsons.
Yeah.
Because it dips, it's low through there. It's underwater probably at a 50-year storm event. It's certainly underwater at a 100-year event. So that's the primary way in and out. And yes, there's access out through Dr. Bethuram's yard, but it seems a challenging part of this overall site and the way we design this site for productive use, because certainly it's an area that's above the floodplain. It's an area that can be and should be developed. And I raised questions to you last month after we decided to pull this to address issues related to the density. And I think I understand from Mary Pierce's comments that we had to go back behind the barn. The barn and the main house are part of the historic register of this site, which kind of dictates the division of this property, the overall 27 acres, into two roughly equivalent parcels. So I can understand that. I found it unusual that we have to rely on a gravel road through Dr. Bethuram's yard to get people out if we were in the midst of a significant flood event. So
It will be a 16-foot wide asphalt path set up for fire trucks to access. So it won't just be a gravel path. It will be a full asphalt drive above the 100-year floodplain with full and complete access out to Franklin Road. It will have an emergency gate connection in that location. Currently, residents on Lancaster Drive do not have an emergency connection out. So this will provide them additional benefit and service as well. It will be public access in the event of an emergency.
So it would be to their benefit if they can get there. So right now they can't get, if they dip down at Parsons.
They can't.
In a 100-year flood event, they can't get to this exit route. I don't know.
We did propose a number of alternatives for access to Franklin Road, perpendicular to or parallel to the historic house. All of the alternatives were turned down by staff, and we were told, again repeatedly, that access to Franklin Road would not be permitted, that the only access was from Parsons Place, and that Parsons was set up for access for this development out to the traffic signal.
Okay. Is there a way to consider the potential to raise Parsons a little bit through that reach?
I think we could study that in our site plan documents. I think right now we have not considered that as a part of the road improvement.
Because I know the floodplain extends through that zone and up and into the neighborhood of Lancaster. So.
And there are solutions we can study when we get to the site plan level of construction documents. Obviously, we have to address stormwater at a much more detailed level.
Right. Okay.
All right. Any other comments? Seeing, well, go ahead.
Okay. I still, I'm supportive of the project, but I want to know why the construction traffic can't come in from Franklin Road to build that neighborhood without interrupting the quality of life on Lancaster.
The construction access will be across the gravel drive that currently the Bethurams use for their horse fields. So it won't be, there will be no construction access on Lancaster.
They can build the new street, and they can build the lots and infrastructure and all that will be built using Dr. Thurham's.
That's correct.
Access.
Yeah.
Okay.
We felt like that was the most appropriate.
Yeah.
All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, any other discussion? Any other business? All right, then if there is no other business, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Next
Yeah.
month, meet, we'll already